What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. So I realized I was going through my videos and I was like, other than one of my first YouTube videos, I have not talked about breeding really. I mean, I guess I talked about breeding a few times, but not like a dedicated how to breed or how I would breed as a beginner. I'm sitting there like, well, when I was a beginner, I wish I knew all this stuff. So I'm going to go through in this video and walk you step by step through everything you need to know, from prepping the adults before the season starts through getting eggs and dealing with those. We're going to talk about everything you need to know about breeding crested geckos, especially if you're a beginner, but even if you're not, a lot of these tips I've learned throughout my time, so it's for experienced people as well. First, let me start off by saying I do not recommend breeding. It takes up all my time. Like, legitimately, I don't have vacations. It's a lot of money. It literally, like, if I'm sick, it doesn't matter if I'm sick, I still have to take care of all my animals, so that sucks when you have a lot. It's essentially your whole life. So if you're doing this because you love it, not just because you're out to make a lot of money. The second thing is you need to be able to house everything that you breed. Don't breed 50 geckos if you can't house 500 babies or however many, you know what I'm saying? You guys get my point. Only breed what you can realistically house in the future. So if you can only hold 10 geckos, you better probably only breed one female, because if she gives you 10 eggs that year, you're already out of space. So be mindful of that as well. They don't just sell like that. I mean, sometimes they do, but it's just supply and demand. So like sometimes some sell quick, sometimes they don't. It just depends. All right, so another thing is you're coming into a saturated hobby. Like when you go to a show, it's ball pythons and crested geckos for the most part, like a reptile show. So like you're gonna be against stiff competition. So my advice to you, if you want to make $1,000 geckos, like when you breed them, you should buy $1,000 geckos to begin with, because that's what's going to produce them. I would not be buying cheap, trying to make something nice to be worth more. It's probably not going to work. So just put in what you want to get out, essentially. Anyway, though, saturated market. So you need to specialize in something and make yourself stand out and be unique. So it's very hard. So make sure you guys actually have a passion for it. All right, it is the next day. Sorry, it started storming and it just sounded like crap. So I was like, all right, I'll just wrap it up. So it's the next day. I'm going to keep going, though. And sorry I have to do it in my car. Lots of stuff's going on right now, so I have to do it in my car. I apologize. Don't just breed to breed. A lot of people just breed and then just put stuff out there. You need to breed for structure as well as spots if you're doing Dalmatians, or pattern if you're doing something else. But you need to breed for structure, not just pattern or spots. A lot of people do that. I value structure because I think it's important. It's not just like a fix in one generation like some people say. It takes many generations to get consistently good structure every single time. So that's super important too. Also, vet care is expensive when you have that many, I'll be honest with you. So yeah, you need to think about all those things as well. This example, let's just say we're pairing them in January, so we're starting in January. But as a breeder, your job starts long before then, because you have to prep your male and your female for the upcoming season, because essentially you want them to be able to last the entire season and not have any issues with calcium or anything like that. First thing you need to think about is the weight of both of your geckos. The females need to have a little bit of extra weight. You don't want them to be fat or obese, because that is not healthy either, but you want both of your geckos to be thick, but for different reasons. The females need to have enough weight to be able to handle if she gets stressed out with the male being with her and she doesn't eat for a time or two, or just breeding in general takes a lot of energy and effort out of the female. So they need to have that extra weight to be able to withstand the breeding season. Even though you're going to keep feeding them and supplementing them throughout the season, you need to start with that high. Males, sometimes when they get in breeding mode, only get in breeding mode, if you know what I'm saying, and they don't really care about eating anymore. They just want to make babies. So sometimes they'll go on a food strike and they'll lose some weight. I'll teach you guys how to counteract that in a minute. So along with the weight of the female, you also need to monitor her calcium sacs. Now, if you don't know how to do that, I'm going to show you that right here. All right, guys. Now, this is my girl Rapunzel, and she has some huge calcium sacs that we're going to show you today. Also, a little fun fact, she's my oldest crested gecko at 16 years old. All right, guys. So the next step is you grab them with one hand, and ideally you use your second hand, but I'm trying to record. But then you rub the side of their mouth, and then they'll essentially open it. They might nip you and bite you a little bit, but it doesn't really hurt that bad. But when you do that, you can kind of see that as long as you're rubbing it against the side of her mouth, she'll eventually open up and you can see those big old calcium sacs. And that's basically so she can produce enough calcium to make the eggs, which these are the eggs and the babies right here, nice and calcified. So after the weights are good and the calcium sacs in the female are good and everything is good, you need to set up the tank for the geckos. Now, I've heard of people putting the male into the female's tank. I've heard of sometimes the people putting the female into the male's tank. I don't really recommend that one unless you have a super aggressive female, but Typically most females aren't that aggressive, but some of them are, to be honest. Or you could put them in like a 6-quart shoe tote for a little bit while you're just sitting there monitoring them, or like if you're spraying your room or taking care of your geckos, you pair them in the shoebox and, you know, just see if they'll breed. And then yeah, if the female will breed, or the male and female will breed, cool. If they won't, just put them back in their tank and then that's fine. And then this is just a quick video of how I set up the tanks. I like to have it nice and planted with some climbing spots and some hides down below, with a lay box and a big water dish. Alright, so some quick tips and tricks on before you pair them. I would suggest you have a male that's bigger than the female, because you want your male to be more aggressive and be able to latch onto the female so they can actually breed. So you basically want a little bit bigger of a male if you can. You don't always have to have it, but it generally works out better if your male is a little bit bigger than your female. Obviously, you don't want a male to be like 65 grams and a female be 45, because that's a very big difference and he might injure your female. So that, just be leery of that, or be wary of that. Now this one is just my personal opinion. I do not breed geckos until they lay infertile eggs on their own. If they don't lay eggs, they're not breeding. I don't care how old they are, I don't care what weight they are, I don't care. If they have to lay eggs on their own without being paired with a male before I will consider breeding them, because that's when I know that their body's ready to produce eggs. Every female is different. Some are ready in 2 years, some take 3. It just kind of depends. I mean, everything grows differently, just like people, just like other things. Everything grows differently, so it just kind of depends. Yeah, I do not pair females at a certain weight or age. I wait until they lay duds on their own. Obviously, if one lays an egg at like a year old and 30 grams, which I've never had that, I guess, but they're typically around 3-4 years old before I actually breed them. I feel like Chips is like 3 or 4 right now, so yeah, that's just what I feel is more humane. That way I know that they're ready to produce eggs. Now another thing, when you actually do pair them and put them in the same tank together, however you decide to do that, I would sit there and observe them, or at least sit in the room so you can hear if anything goes down. I've had a female really try to attack a male because I put a male into her tank. She was super aggressive, so after that I had to put her in the male tank and it went better, but she was not happy with him being in there. Always observe for at least 20 to 30 minutes, and then I would come back, like if you go to bed like later on after that, just come back and observe, because you want to make sure that they're good. And then I would check again when you wake up in the morning, and then usually once they're in there for a while they're good, but I still generally check mine every single day. I'd rather be safe than sorry. Gnat, man, what the? And then once you pair them, you essentially, what I would do is leave the male with the female for a week, and then I would weigh the male. Well, I would weigh the male at the beginning and then weigh him again, and if he lost weight, put him in his tank for about a week and feed him 3-4 times. And if he didn't lose any weight, I put him in his tank for maybe 2-3 days and then put him with the next female. I would generally only pair males to, I only breed mine to 3 at the very most. Most of mine either have 2 or 1, but there are some that have 3. Like Mercury pretty much always has 3, but he's a prolific breeder. Odie has 3, because both of those two, as soon as they smell a female, they're like, they just go. When their mind is on breeding, their mind is on breeding. So those two always get 3. Bombshell I think gets 2, or had 2 this previous season, so it just depends on the gecko. But I never do more than 3, just because it's like, I'm trying to be humane, you know what I'm saying? I love my animals. They're like they're like my children, so it's like I'm not gonna hurt them, especially just for money, dude. I don't give a shit about that. Then when you do it, you just basically do the same cycle on repeat as you go through the 2 to 3 females, and then you should be good. I generally pair them at the beginning of the season, then probably 3 or 4 months later I pair them one more time, and then that's it for the whole season. I just pair them twice for the season, and that's it. Now once you pair them, you should be expecting eggs in 40 to 60 days, I would say, and then you should be getting eggs every 30 to 45 days. Generally you're going to try to aim for 8 months out of the year. Now first time layers, you're probably not going to get that, and you're probably not going to have a high success rate on them being fertile. Generally you'd like to get 8 months out of breeding, and then you give them 4 months off to recover. I generally just kind of let mine breed until they, like, I don't have them together full time, so it's like after they're paired the second time, I'll keep collecting eggs, but they're done whenever they stop laying. So sometimes I get 10 eggs, so it's like 5 months. Sometimes I get, I don't know if I've really gotten more than, yeah, I don't really push my geckos to breed a lot, to be honest with you. It's just whatever I get is what I get. Not the greatest business plan, but I mean, like I said, I don't really care about the money that much. Like, yes, obviously you're doing it to get some money, but it's like, it's not about the money for me. It's about making cool stuff and being able to provide that to other people and get other people's cool stuff to make my cool stuff better. If you guys enjoyed today's video, if you did, leave me a thumbs up. If you guys have any questions, just ask me down in the comments. Do I need to make a part 2? Are there a lot of questions or things that I need to just keep up on or add to, or anything I left to kind of vague that you want questions on? Do you guys want a part 2 where it's something about how to raise the babies, or like what to do once the babies hatch? I could always do that as well. Let me know. Thank you guys. Like, share, subscribe. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to try to put together a video on our new dog, our new puppy, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace. Oh yeah, and I apologize for looking like a mess. I'm not getting a ton of sleep because the puppy makes me wake up every so often, but hey, I look like a mess. It is what it is. You guys need videos though. If you want to see a really cool care guide I made on crested geckos, click this video here.